What's the crack, guys? Welcome back. It's Kazzy. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all of the books that I read in February. I'm just going to go with a cliche and say, despite February being the shortest month of the year, which we all know, I managed to have a pretty decent reading month. I managed to read 6 books in February, and I am very happy with that because it is such a short month, and we only lose a couple of days. Those could be pivotal days in reading times, you know. In 2 days you can read another book. As I said, I read 6 books. Most of them were pretty solid reads. I enjoyed the vast majority of them. So let's just get started. The first book that I read in February was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Nikolai duology that she has been working on. King of Scars is the first one, and I give this 5 stars. I am probably biased in that I give it 5 stars because I love Leigh Bardugo writing so much. I love the Grisha trilogy. I love the Six of Crows duology, and as soon as this was announced, I was living for it because this one follows Nikolai. This follows Nikolai and all of his trials and tribulations about being king. This does have spoilers for the rest of the universe, so you cannot just jump into King of Scars without first reading the Grisha trilogy and the Six of Crows duology. There's no two ways about it. You have to read them before you can get to King of Scars. Once you do that, then you are sweet and you will understand everything that is going on in King of Scars because it refers a lot to what happens in the original trilogy and to Six of Crows, because Nina from Six of Crows is in King of Scars. When Leigh Bardugo announced that Nina was going to have a perspective in this book, I thought she would just going to be, like Melisandre is in A Song of Ice and Fire. She gets 1 chapter out of all of those books, and yet she's a pretty dominant character. I thought the same was going to happen for Nina. No, she has her own storyline. As I said, this is a 5-star read for me. I loved this book so much. I loved Nikolai, and I think Zoya has just jumped to the top of my favorite characters list, joint with Nikolai. Zoya was one head bitch in charge in this book. I was living for every single moment that girl was in this book. I was just living for it. King of Scars is very much a character driven book. I think it really sets up what's going to happen in the next book. So there's a lot of character development with Nikolai, with Zoya, with Nina. They all go on their own adventure in discovering themselves, what they are capable of, and I love the idea that the saints are involved in this because they are quite prevalent throughout the Grisha universe. Nina's storyline was a little bit slow burning for me, but I was okay with that because I adore Nina, and it just reminded me of some of the things that I had forgotten from Crooked Kingdom because I read it last year, so I was like, oh my damn, I forgot that happened. That's why you need to read the other books before you jump into this one. I love this book so much. I know a lot of people are a bit torn between it. They didn't think it was a 5-star read. Some of them were just a middle of the road, but for me, I loved it. After that, I listened to the audiobook of Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This was my first foray into a Brandon Sanderson novel, and I give it 5 stars. It is beautifully narrated. I can't remember off the top of my head who narrates it. If I remember, I'll have it just written here. She does a great job with it. And what I loved about Warbringer is, did I say Warbringer or Warbreaker? I read Warbreaker, not Warbringer. I'm thinking of Leigh Bardugo's other book, Wonder Woman. Oops. I'm just Leigh Bardugo on the brain. Not going to apologize. What I loved about Warbreaker is that the synopsis of the book on Goodreads and even on Audible, it is so vague. And when you actually jump into the story, it is not what you expect at all. And that's what this book was. I did not expect it to be what it was. It was just incredible. I loved it. I love the characters. I love Ciri and I love Vivenna. I especially loved Vivenna and the character arc that she had. And even Ciri, the character arc that she had, and what Ciri is managed to do, because it follows these 2 sisters, Ciri and Vivenna is her older sister. She's the eldest out of 4 children, and she was conditioned from birth up until her age that she was going to marry the God King in the reigning kind of kingdom. But the king did not want to send Vivenna because he was too attached to her. He didn't want to send her, so he sent Ciri, the willful youngest child. And so it goes from there. She ends up not knowing what to do, and everybody's like telling her, do this, do that, do the other thing, and they're hiding something. And what I loved about this book is that you go into all of this blind, just like Siri. You learn everything as she does, and you learn everything as Vivenna does as well, because she thinks, oh, she's just this, she can go and rescue her sister and it'll be all dandy, but it is not. It is a learning curve for her too. Everything's not as it seems. The world isn't black and white the way she thinks it is. Also, there's a magic system involved, which is very interesting and kind of give me Hellboy vibes, you know, from Hellboy 2. I can't remember what the name of the professor was, but the robotic guy that Seth MacFarlane does the voice for, it reminded me so much of that aspect of that film. Since this was my first time reading / listening to a Brandon Sanderson book, I really enjoyed his writing style and the way that he portrayed everything. I loved the language that he used, especially because I was listening to it in an audiobook. I could pick up alliteration and rhyming and just the way that his sentences were constructed. My literature student brain was just like, bing, love it. So I love this book, and I cannot wait to see what happens next, and I think it's gonna be a long wait. After that, I picked up a graphic novel, and I picked up the Ultimate Comics Hawkeye by Jonathan Hickman. This was actually a Christmas present from one of my best friends, because she and I love Hawkeye. Once that arrived, I was like, I am reading that today. Like, I liked it. It's 4 stars. It was a quick read, obviously, because it's like that thin. It's nothing remarkably new or unique. Nick Fury faces a trio of impossible earth-shattering crises. With S.H.I.E.L.D.'s forces divided across the globe, there's an urgent message only one mind can handle. The ultimate resident bad boy, Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, will have to infiltrate deep into the Southeast Asian Republic to deal with civil unrest that threatens the future of mutant kind. But he won't be going it alone. Under his command are the mysterious and untested mutants of Ultimate X and the even more unpredictable Hulk. They say Hawkeye never misses, but there's a first time for everything. Like, it was fun. It was a good read, but it also cemented my dislike of the Hulk. Like, I know it's probably an unpopular opinion. I am like, what is the point of the Hulk? Like, in this, he's supposed to be a bit of a badass. Everybody's like, we have the Hulk. And even this one is like, we have the Hulk. But he just goes off on one within like 2 seconds. As soon as the bad guys just do anything to him, he's just unstable and he just does whatever the hell he likes. And so I'm just like, seriously, Hulk? Seriously? The 4th book that I read in February was Stormfront by Jim Butcher. This is the first book in the Dresden Files. I've been wanting to get into the Dresden Files ever since I heard about the TV show, and then when I realized it was a book series, because it's about a wizard private detective, and I was like, I'm so down for that. I love this. I loved it so much. What I loved about it is that it's in a first person narrative, so you're getting Harry Dresden's thoughts and everything from him straight out of bat, and he does not have a filter between his brain and his mouth. He does not have a filter. So you can imagine the quips that are in this book. It gave me a lot of Sanctuary vibes. I mention Sanctuary all the time, but this really did give me Sanctuary vibes, because he felt like, to me, he's what James Watson could have been had he just been a private detective, because he has that analytical brain, but he also has the magic, and it's not kind of like the magic of like Harry Potter, you know, even though his name is Harry. It was such an enjoyable ride, especially because it is an urban fantasy. It is set in Chicago and is gritty. It is gory. It is just incredibly enjoyable to read if you love that kind of thing. Like, there was a scene in the 2nd chapter, I was like, I should not have read this before bed. If you like, you know, fallible characters and lead men that are just, I don't know how to describe Harry Dresden, but he's everything that I kind of want in a male lead. He is ballsy, he is brash. He's just Harry Dresden. Oh my goodness, I just love him. I love the world that Jim Butcher creates in this. Even though it is Chicago, you just feel that you're there. You feel the rain, you feel the darkness, you feel the grisly underbelly of Chicago. It's just wonderful, and I loved it, and I give it 5 stars. I'm not the most articulate because it's been a while since I've filmed anything, so after that I picked up Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Whenever I first hauled this, I said it would give me Captain Marvel vibes. Nope. This is actually more Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek Voyager vibes. This follows the character of Spencer, who wants to be a pilot, but her father has been disgraced as a coward, as a deserter, and so everybody thinks that she's going to go the same way, and they constantly remind her of that, and they just deny her at every single turn that she is never going to be a pilot, no matter how many loops she jumps through and no matter how many times she proves herself. She and her fellow humans live on this planet where they live underground, which reminded me so much of Star Trek Voyager, because it reminded me of the Okampa from season 1, and they live underground. Spencer gets out through the tunnels. She's like Cass that way. But it also reminded me of Battlestar Galactica in that whenever they were training the newbies, whichever episode it was where Kara's training up the new ones, this book reminded me so much of that, so it really helped me to visualize it a whole lot more. This being my second foray into Brandon Sanderson's writing, and the first one I've actually physically read, and this is more of a YA novel. I still love this. The characters themselves were so engaging. Spencer and her cohorts that are also in training, the instructors themselves, I find myself really loving, because they really pushed her to her limits and they could not break her. I just love these characters so much. I love this world a lot. That ending, I did not expect it. I kind of thought that that might have been what was happening with about a fifth left of it, but nevertheless, I was like, oh my goodness, I really, really like this. And it also gave me, now that I'm remembering it, it gave me Star Trek Discovery vibes a little bit, not to give any spoilers for the book or for the TV series. I absolutely love this book, and I cannot recommend it enough to anybody that loves any of those shows. I've just fallen in love with Brandon Sanderson's writing. And the last book that I read in February was Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I read this on audiobook and I give this 3 stars. But going into Children of Time, I only heard about it on Books with Emily Fox, and she loved it. She absolutely loved it, and she was like, the only time I will feel myself rooting for spiders. That should have been warning number 1, that I probably was not going to absolutely love this book, because I am not the biggest fan of spiders. He really is, to be perfectly honest. At the start of the book, they are trying to terraform a planet so that eventually it's going to be fit for human habitation. They have a plan to send down chimps with a virus that will accelerate their growth and maturity and their brain patterns and all that, so that eventually they will be able to communicate back to the humans. But something goes wrong in the first chapter and all goes to hell. Instead of the chimps being super evolved, spiders and ants are. I'm just like still getting chills up and down because it's just like, yeah. Fast forward to a couple of millennia later, a ship from Earth stops at this planet because it knows that it is undergoing this terraformation, but they didn't know about the disaster that happened. So they turn up ready to populate the planet, but instead they're attacked, and so the story goes from there. And then they find out that, you know, holy shit, there's like spiders and ants, and it made for the most interesting scene that you could ever hear in your head when you're at work, like in subdued light, and your fleece is tickling you right there on the neck, and you're freak the fuck out. It was not great, people. It was not great. It made for like an incredible mental image, but it scared the fucking life out of me. A quintessential, you know, sci-fi bug attack scene, you know, from like Starship Troopers, but it was just like, yeah, no. That wasn't what affected my rating. What affected my rating was also the audiobook. I did not really love the voice that narrated it, Mel Hudson. It was okay. She did an okay job, but for me, I just didn't really gel well with her, and she didn't really have a great like characterization of the characters, in my opinion. Also, the amount of times that these people went into cryogenic stasis was unreal. It was like every fart saying they were being put under, woken up, put under, woken up, put under. We're gonna, and I'm like kind of wondering how many years are going by in this, because I was listening to it on audiobook. I probably would have got a greater understanding of how much time went by had I actually read it, but I didn't. So I was like, okay, what year is it now? How old are these guys supposed to be now? What? Sometimes the writing got too technical and too repetitive. Like the amount of times that I learned that Portia's thoughts and memories and knowledge was passed down through the generations, I was like, okay, I got that like 6 times ago. It was repetitive in a way that was not helpful. Whereas if they would repeated what year it was, it might have helped. So that's why I give it 3. I enjoyed the story. Again, nothing particularly unique, but it was well executed in terms of the plot, just not necessarily how it was written. Right? Okay. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 6 books that I read in February. Have you read any of these books? Let me know in the comments down below, or if you want to start reading any of these books. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!